Every city has one or more, a shelter, a place for women and their children to go when their life is often at the most desperate. They're often running from an abusive spouse or boyfriend or fighting the demons of addiction and self-harm. But why do some shelters succeed whereas others fail to get a breakthrough or see transformational change? In Pennsylvania's capital city, Harrisburg, Bethesda Mission's Women and Children's Center seems to have found the answer. We'll talk to its longtime director, Shelley Brooks, when we return. Our guest tonight has seen almost every form of brokenness and hurt in the faces of the hundreds of women and children she served alongside her team at Bethesda Mission Women and Children's Center. For decades, Shelley Brooks has been the embrace, comfort, and security of disenfranchised and even discarded women, running from their abusers and battling years of pain and brokenness. But every year at the Bethesda Mission, at their annual banquet in Harrisburg, in front of hundreds of supporters, Shelley introduces women who are healthy, independent, and changed. Shelley, what's the secret? Why do you see change where so many others have failed?
Well, I think that, I don't know if everyone else has failed, but I think that what makes us different, two things, is that we have God and we promote Jesus Christ. And the other thing is that we're a long-term program. Because Bethesda Mission doesn't take government money, we don't have the reins that other facilities have, the other places have. So we can look at someone, we can look at their problem, their issue, and we can spend that time digging very deep, rather slow, concentrated, with a lot of love, and help people then to move out of some of the bondage and the brokenness that they've experienced.
Yeah, that's a real blessing. You know, how do you get into this work? I mean, I know your sister from college days.
Yes.
But when you were a kid growing up in Harrisburg, did you ever vision for yourself that, you know, someday when I'm all grown up, I'm going to be running a women's shelter, a Christian women's shelter?
Not at all, Joe. I had no idea, no clue. I did not grow up with a lot of violence in my family. I did not grow up.
How many kids in the family besides you?
There were four of us. Two of them my parents adopted, and then the other ones. But we had a very close-knit family. We had a very supportive family that encouraged conversation, encouraged debate. But there was a way to debate. There was a way to talk to one another with respect. You didn't have to agree. So I didn't grow up with a lot of violence. I didn't grow up with a lot of women not being respected. So going to the Bethesda Mission was really a surprise for me. Briefly, I'll tell you just a first story. The first night I was there, the director at that time, I came in as a counselor, teacher, and she left the keys on her desk and said, "If you need me, call me." That was my training.
Wow.
6-foot woman, 350 pounds. Told me that another woman who was about 6 foot and 400 pounds had spit into her orange juice. She said, "What are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, we certainly aren't going to drink it, are we?" And I said, "Well, can you trust God enough that maybe He'll supply, and we'll wait until all the staff is here tomorrow, because I know if there a fight broke out, I would not be able to handle that." And so she said, "Okay, but something better be done." So that evening, I ran out to Pathmark. They had just started staying open at 24 hours a day. And I went there and bought like $50 worth of orange juice out of my savings. That's all I had. And took it back to the shelter. A couple days later, I went back and she said, "Your faith in God must be really strong because somebody donated a lot of orange juice." And I said, "Did the problem get straightened out?" And she said, "Yeah." And then I went home and realized I better work on my counseling skills because I didn't have a lot of money to keep paying for things like orange juice in case of crises or trouble.
Now, were you just out of school when you took this job, or?
No, I was in school. Oh, I had just finished my undergrad degree, and I had an experience, the spiritual experience that I've never ever had in my life. I was in my bedroom folding clothes, and it felt a cloud of peace come over me like I had never ever felt in my life. Nothing changed. I didn't see anything. It was just this cloud of peace. And I heard a voice say, go to Bethesda Mission. When I said, why, the cloud of peace started leaving. And I said, I'll go.
Wow.
And I went and I called my father. And I don't even know to this day why I called my dad. And I said, he's always been a big supporter of Bethesda. He was when he was living. But I said, I have to go to Bethesda. And he said, okay, well, go. Are you going to donate or what I don't know. And it took me about 2 weeks to try to come up with a untruth to tell them about this experience. How do you have an experience that just blows your whole life out of disarray? And yet I didn't have it within me to say, this is what happened. And I went to Bethesda. I talked with the director. She was sitting across like you and I are. There were chairs in the way. And she said, well, what brings you? She said, tell me about yourself. And I didn't know what to tell her, so I just started telling her about who I was and my life. And she had her Bible next to her. She jumped over the couch. She started shaking me and said, we've been praying for you. Wow. She opened her Bible with a small list of about 13, 14 things, and I fit about 12 of them. And she said, come to work. And I said, work? Is that what this is about, work? I wanted to be a professional student. I wanted to stay home with my children. My husband at the time and I had decided to sacrifice, and I would stay home until they got older, and I just keep taking classes, and it was about going to work. I said, okay, I got to be obedient. The first night I was hooked. First night. 2 weeks later, the executive director came and said, so how do you like it here? And I said, this is where I'm supposed to be. God called me here. God will call me out. And that was 38 and a half years ago. And it doesn't feel like a job at Bethesda Mission. It feels a blessing because I get to see Jesus every day. I see Jesus show up in some way in someone's life, in someone's telephone call, in someone's donation, in someone's need. I get to see Jesus every day.
Well, given the profile of the average person who's there,
they come from all walks of life. It doesn't matter. The profile is you, me, everyone. We have women that have lived on the streets of Philadelphia for 14, 15 years. We have had teachers. We have had physicians' wives. We've had nurses. We've had a New York police officer. We've had women who work every day for minimum wage, trying to just make it, trying to put food on the table for their family. So the whole gamut of humanity, of women and with children, we have had them.
And they come there and they get a bed or a room? We
are not a shelter. We are a program, a long-term program of change. Whatever it is that you come in to the shelter with, if you are willing to do something about that, you don't have to leave our doors with it. Whether it is abuse, it's always trauma. And you have to really be trauma informed to know how to deal with folks. They come with a lot of baggage, a lot of pain, a lot of struggle, trying to nurture themselves, but they can't. So they need a group of people to come around them and to nurture them themselves.
Right, and you provide that at the mission, of course.
That
and they bring
staff
their kids
of
too?
about 13. Some of them can. We only have room for 6 families. So our families are low, but we have room for 51 people, 51 women. So
and are you full?
Not yet, because we are a new building that's about a year old. We are building our staff. We are building our numbers up. We have about 25 today, and that should probably go to 30 by the end of the week.
Wow. Yes. So there's like a never-ending,
No.
The people are always coming and saying, hey, I'm in the midst of, is it more abuse, trauma, or is it some drug addiction, or?
All of the above again. Trauma is what we deal with primarily. So when you look at that, then you can figure out where you need to move with women. We do have a floor of nothing but women working on recovery, substance abuse recovery, and then we have a floor of women that have been homeless. COVID brought us a lot of nurses, brought us a couple of teachers, brought a lot of homeless women who lost a lot of loved ones. And in that loss, their mental health was rough. Working, the hours that they were working in the COVID floors was rough, and they sort of just sort of fell apart. When the loved ones passed, they could no longer afford where they were living, so they wound up being evicted. We found that to be.
How do you help somebody who's homeless get back on their feet so that they can actually afford to move someplace and have their own place?
Let's find out why you were homeless first. Was it mental health? Was it abuse? Was it the lack of skill, the lack of knowledge? Let's find out what's going on. Let's get you feeling safe, because if you're homeless, you're not safe. I don't trust anybody. So when people can finally feel that there is some trust and respect and dignity and love, then we can start putting some goals together to find out what are your skills, what are your skills that are lacking, where do we need to help you to improve, what mental health help do you need, what else needs to be improved. Maybe it might be reconciliation with some loved ones like family or children or parents. Can we do that? That might be of help. So let's start building a support. Let's start building some skill. Let's start getting some dreams going back, because once upon a time you used to have all these dreams. And what is it that tore the dreams apart, and what just killed them? And let's pray about it. Let's talk to you about Jesus. And wherever you put Jesus in a situation, it's going to change. So let's see what God will do with this by putting Jesus in the middle of it and get you up and going. Sometimes women will go out and still find a job, but it doesn't pay enough for them to live. So if we've created a good support system for them, maybe two of them can live together. If we've worked on reconciliation, maybe families can be that support.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they're in the church, if they're in the body of Christ, that's where we really want to get them. We want to get them in good, healthy churches where people know how to love and people are doing the walk of Jesus Christ, and that will be your support.
How many of the women are already Christians that come to you? And
probably about 75%. And when I say that, they are been hurt by the church. They've been disenfranchised by the church. But they were believers of Jesus Christ when they came in, but they wonder, why would Jesus let me wind up here? How did I get here if Jesus is so loving? And so we have to unravel that too and let them know that, yeah, Jesus does love you very, very much, and he's not left you.
Is there a story of somebody who came in really, really messed up and left a whole person and now is doing great things?
I have many, many, many of those stories. I always say, working at the mission, as long as I have, you can tell stories for 2 minutes, 2 hours, or 2 days. I have a story of a young woman who got arrested. She was 15 years old at the time, or maybe 17 years old, and she was biracial. And when she was put in a foster home with African Americans, they told her that she was too dark. When she was put in a Caucasian home, they told her she was too dark. She was too dark with the Caucasians. And
too light.
She was too light with the African Americans. And so she just got frustrated, and she finished school being homeless, high school. And she was in a Reading area laying on a bench. And police came and hit her with a stick because she was asleep.
Oh, wow.
So the police officer was doing what he was supposed to be doing, because she wasn't supposed to be on the bench. But being a female and being scared on the bench, she didn't know what he was going to do to her. She didn't know who he was, and jumped up and punched him. From that, she wound up in jail with a felony, and a priest who was in Wernersville, I believe, Pennsylvania at the time, called our facility and asked, could we take her, and we did. And we helped her. And all she just kept saying is, I wish I had a family. Both of her parents were dead. She didn't know her father. When she did find him, he found out about him, he had died. But her mother died when she was about 7 or 8. Wow. And all she wanted was a family, all she wanted. And I kept saying, we're going to let us love you to be your family. Let us love you. She lost a lot of weight. She was a beautiful young lady, went to community college, thought she knew it all. We didn't want her to leave, and walked into a very abusive relationship. Came back to us pregnant and suffered from that relationship. So over time, we got her back to where she needed to be. And with this little one that we were all at the hospital with when she delivered. And she went to Wilson College in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. And the mother hens that all the women staff are, we took her in about 7 vans and had all this stuff to decorate a room. And we did it so much that she told us all to get out and go away. She graduated, went to her graduation. She is working and now gives back financially to the mission.
Wonderful.
So, and that was a wonderful story. Some of our stories are not as wonderful. Some women leave and die, and some of them that are struggling with addiction, overdose. Some have been in violence and have been found dead in precarious places, in dumpsters. And so whenever I read, whether it's Philadelphia, Coatesville, wherever, that someone has died like that, I'm always looking at a name, because you just never know.
See if it's one of yours.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. That's such difficult but such needed work. It's a blessing. Do you tell any of the people that come there about your story, about how God brought you there?
Very seldom. This is the first time I've ever said it on television live, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Are you concerned that people think that maybe you were crazy, or?
I am, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No, but I mean, God, people underestimate God and the capacity of God to do anything.
Yes.
And so, when God leads you someplace directly, when I met my wife, I heard a voice saying, "This is the woman you're going to marry."
Yes.
Now, I don't tell it to many people because they say, well, you hear voices, pal, so, you may not be
But you
with
did.
it. But I knew, I heard a voice. Something told me, this is the woman you're going to marry.
Yes.
And I even said it to her at the time when I was hugging her, and she stepped back and looked at me and said, like, what?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Are you crazy? I said, no, don't, never mind. But I knew it, and I knew who it was that was telling me that.
Yes.
Just like you knew who it was that was telling you that you need to be at Bethesda.
Yes.
And it's so powerful because people don't believe that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is able to visit us even now in the 20th and 21st centuries and talk to us and say, this is what I want you to do. This is where I want you to be.
Right. God has never stopped speaking, and Jesus has never stopped healing. And God is so real today, and Jesus' word and Jesus' life. And I think that no matter the situation, if you've put Jesus into that situation, it is going to change. And it takes time. It doesn't always happen the way we want it to happen, but his word is true. Jesus is true, and he's real. And if you wait on the Lord and be of good cheer, you will see what God will do. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
What does he call us to do but to love him back with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbors and love ourselves?
Absolutely. That's our favorite scripture at the mission. That's our favorite scripture, because we have to learn to love. We have to learn to love God first, and then we have to learn to love ourselves. And if we're treating ourselves good, then we'll be able to treat somebody else well.
Yeah.
And so you can see when people don't like themselves very much because of the hate that goes on in our world today, if we would just stop and realize that Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. When we return, I'll ask Shelley about what kind of needs she's seeing in Harrisburg and around the country, and how you and I can help. Stay with us.
Learn more about Joe Watkins and the mission of this program at joewatkins.net. And tell Joe what you thought about today's program in the comment box.
Her name is Shelley Brooks, and she directs the Women and Children's Center at Bethesda Mission in Harrisburg. Shelley, as we've discussed, you've seen some horrific things in your years. We've heard a good bit about human trafficking over the last decade. Mm-hmm. Is that an area where you see a direct need, or is it different?
Absolutely, positively. Absolutely. And I think what needs to change first are laws. Because if laws were much more strict, maybe people would think about trafficking and stealing people's children and people. The thing that I've seen, though, at the women's shelter is women have been trafficked over a long time, and then they come to the shelter. And I'm talking about children 4 or 5 years old who have not been able to tell anyone, who have kept that secret for years and years and years.
When a woman is trafficked, what does that mean for those of our viewers who may not know what that is?
Traffic means that someone comes and enslaves you to basically be anything they want you to be. It's usually a sex toy, a sex partner, or sex for sale. But it could also be just a slave to do anything that someone does. They have power over you, and they have kept you in bondage that you are not free to leave or free to make some choices that you want to do. And yes, sex trafficking is awful worldwide and local here in this country. But what I've seen is that I deal with a lot of women, I work with a lot of women who primarily have been sexually trafficked all their lives. No one has just ever heard their story. So after a while, you get to the point where your life falls apart.
Is there a profile for people who say like they don't have a father or a mother, or they don't have the normal family structure?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We find that some women can be in a family, and it may be an uncle, it might be a neighbor, it may be a boyfriend, it may be someone like that will start molestation or start grooming you. I've known of people who have married a mother only to groom the daughter because the daughter is coming up. Sexual trafficking is horrific. It's horrific. It changes people's lives. It's very painful. Yes, we have women that have come out of the adult rooms, and the police will call and say we have women, or we stopped a truck or something like that, and we have women that will come out of that. Or if it's not a safe, we'll send them to a safe place where there is a house that deals specifically with.
When you're saying they're in a truck, what does that mean?
Well, in the news you'll read that sometimes they pull off over trucks, and there are human people in the back of the trucks, like New York to Philly kind of thing. And those are people who are headed one way or the other, that they plan to sell for sex. And it is horrific, and it devastates people's lives.
Yeah,
and when it's happening to children, children disappear. It's just something, I think, that the laws of the land need to be tightened up, addressed a little more to stop it. It is something that is really a very destructive menace in our society.
You aren't funded by by federal government or state government.
No.
You're a Christian organization, and what you do is so necessary. Maybe there are people watching that might want to figure out how they could support Bethesda. What's the best way for them to do that?
First, pray.
Yeah.
I was sharing with someone just a couple minutes ago that we live off of prayer. I mean, prayer changes
Yeah, they prayed for you, and they got you, and God spoke to you. Isn't that amazing? They were praying for you, and God told you needed to go to Bethesda,
right.
and yeah,
prayer
does change things.
I pray every day that His will is done, not mine. So prayer. We are a Christian organization that survives off the financial donation of people that give from their hearts. And people have given, because I've not ever missed a paycheck at Bethesda, so I'm grateful for the blessings that they can understand the vision, they can see what's done, and Bethesda is very honest about what they do with their money and what we do with people. So we're really transparent about that, and we really try to help people, men, women, children, young people. So I would say that they can call, and we have needs. We have a needs list on the website, on our newsletter of needs that we use, basic daily things, paper towels, trash bags, those kind of items. And if you're in the area, we have a brand new building. I would say please call and make an appointment to come see our new building and see what God has done and what God is doing in that, because it's amazing that we've come from where we were 38 years ago to now where we are.
Wow, wow. Our thanks to Shelley for sharing her life and passion for people with us. God has done great things in and through her. It's been an honor having her in State of Independence. I'll be back in a moment with our great producer, Jeff Coleman, with closing thoughts.
You're watching Joe Watkins' State of Independence on Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Share your comments about today's program in the comment box at joewatkins.org.
Now let's talk to our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
Well, Shelley's story, which, if she had her druthers, she wouldn't likely talk at all about herself. But it's important, I think, because there are people who watch this program who are at a juncture in life where they're saying, what should I do with my life? What am I going to do? And you look at it kind of either at the front end of life saying, I think I have 70 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
Or 75 years. Or you're at the other end of life saying, I've only got a year or two left, so I might as well enjoy it. But you have this other voice inside of you, especially if you're a child of God, that is pushing you into the outer boundaries and the outer limits of what your physical strength, your mental ability is telling you you can see. And to be able to hear that voice, to be able to turn all these distractions off, especially our phones and other intake points, I think is really important to be able to step back and say, okay, what do you want me to do next?
Well, to be obedient to it.
To be obedient to it, yeah. Yeah, so I think, programs like this today, no, it doesn't mean that you're going to run a women and children's center in the heart of a city where there's enormous need. But it may be if you're confined in a nursing facility, talking to the nurse or the person next to you. But as long as we have breath, I think there's an obligation to the Creator to ask Him what He has for us to do.
Yeah, I think my biggest fear is that so few people do that. That so few people say, "Hey, I'm good. I believe in Jesus. I go to church. I'm good."
Right.
And that my faith requires nothing else of me. That they may not help somebody who's struggling. That they may not see somebody on the street who's homeless and even be moved to give them some money or to give an encouraging word.
That's right.
And this again underscores the importance of being obedient to that voice, that beautiful, still voice. Like Shelley has been.
It's been an important conversation.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Grateful to God for what she's done.
Indeed.
Yeah. Shelley has been an eyewitness to God's power to save and restore broken lives. I hope you'll pray for her and the team at Bethesda Missions Women and Children's Center in the city of Harrisburg. Our aim is to encourage you, like Shelley, to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and your neighbor as you love yourself. Take a minute to let me know how it blessed and enriched your life with a comment at joewatkins.org. You can also share this program from our YouTube channel. I think there are many who need to hear Shelley's message. From America's first capital, Philadelphia, I'm Joe Watkins, along with Jeff Coleman and the great team here at Lighthouse TV. Thanks so much for watching. God willing, I'll see you next week. What a blessing. I met a saint today. She is one of the saints. She's one of the saints. To hear God's voice and to listen to God's voice and to be used by God.
But in her description of it, she is the eyewitness here.
Yeah.
Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.